needs to be protected. And unless the judges take an overall study of the Constitution, and including the laws, we sometimes quote phrases from the preamble, we the people, rule of law. All these are very wide concepts. They have to be interpreted keeping in mind the checks and balances within the system. And that is what today I find, that sometimes these balances are getting disturbed by our judgments, and the judges should be very careful when they draft the judgments. The Indian Constitution is more than a written text. A superficial reading of selected provisions of the written Constitution without more may be misleading. It is necessary to make a profound investigation of the underlying principles animating the whole of the Constitution, including the principles of federalism, respect for other governing institutions, democracy, and the rule of law. These principles must inform our overall appreciation of the constitutional rights and obligations, not only of citizens. Rights are also there of the other institutions. The Parliament has its own rights. They have their own privileges. They have their own power. Similarly, the executive, they have their own rights, they have their own powers. And under our Constitution, there is a very fine checks and balance system which is provided for and which needs to be respected. Two things. Legality and legitimacy are two important concepts. They go hand in hand. If there is judicial overreach, the legitimacy of judicial review will be obliterated. Please keep this in mind. Our democratic institutions accommodate a continuous process of evolution which is reflected in the constitutional right of each participant in the federation to initiate constitutional changes. Each of the three participants under the Indian Constitution is duty-bound not to disturb the structural checks and balances which are provided for in the Constitution, which is a written Constitution of Article 395 articles. Why did the Constitution say must provide for written Constitution? They wanted to see that each structure, each participant has a role to play, and details are given so that the discretion is limited. The powers are limited. Powers in the sense that each organ has to operate within its own sphere. Now coming to the legislative overreach, apart from judicial overreach, transparency and accountability have got to be there in all the three branches. However, in respect of judicial branch, I have one comment to make. I would request the government that accountability should be balanced with judicial independence. It should not happen that in the process of enacting laws for making the judges accountable, the concept of judicial independence is lost sight of, because decisional independence and structural independence are more important when you are required to balance accountability and judicial independence. The government may make laws making the judges accountable. We are not afraid of that. The question is that in that process, the constitutional tinkering should be done very carefully. We need to take opinions of eminent jurists who will give objective opinion, jurists coming from all sections. Otherwise, I am afraid that with the state of drafting of laws in our country today, we will be taking a very big risk and we will be disturbing the constitutional balance, which we will be regretting for all times to come. Therefore, I am requesting the Honorable Law Minister that be it a collegium system or be it an accountability bill, whatever laws you bring, please take the opinion of eminent jurists. Please consider the comparative jurisdictional aspects all over the world. Number of changes have made in other jurisdictions in matters of appointment and impeachment of judges all over the world. Everywhere we find some drawbacks. We need to make a detailed study before we tinker with the Constitution, and particularly with judicial independence. In conclusion, on judicial independence, the Attorney General has commented, rightly, fairly, that our human rights jurisprudence is very well appreciated all over the world. Please don't suffocate justice, and I am sure it will not be done. But since the Law Minister wanted me to say something on the future road, these are the cautions I have said. And in the words of Justice Spiegelman, former Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of New South Wales, Australia, justice is like oxygen. There is no reason to notice it if you have it in abundance. However, if you restrict the flow, it becomes more and more important until a point is reached when nothing else matters at all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.